Welcome to Paper Quest.
I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the Infinite Library.
During a main quest, we discuss our current buddy book, and during a side quest, we share our recent solo reads with each other.
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Please rate, like, or subscribe wherever you're listening, and check out the show notes for all the links in the description.
Check the Facebook page for our upcoming release schedule, and consider supporting the show with our $1 Patreon, which also grants access to each episode 2 days early. But for now, please join us in another episode.
This is Paper Quest.
So first of all, if anyone hears crunching in the background, my dog is hardcore eating behind me. I apologize. Alright, so today is our next buddy book swap. This is where Jess and I swap favorite books from our past. We did this once before earlier in the year, so we're going to do this again, starting with your book this week and my book on the next main quest. So what did you pick for us today?
Yeah, so the book I chose was Switched, which is the first book in the Trial trilogy written by Amanda Hocking. And I'm just going to read a quick summary from the back of the book. I have read these multiple times, so I am sticking to the back of the book so there are no spoilers.
Can I totally change your perception on that word and tell you how they pronounce
Sure.
it? Trill.
Trill? So I used to
Trill.
just say, like, in my head, Tiel, but Trill. Okay.
Yep.
I assume you listened to it.
I did listen to it.
The Trill trilogy. Yeah, I didn't actually know that. I was wondering when I was reading it, like, are some of these wrong? So that's interesting.
Trilogy. Huh.
When Wendy Everly was 6 years old, her mother was convinced she was a monster and tried to kill her. 11 years later, Wendy discovers her mother might have been right. She's not the person she always believed herself to be, and her whole life begins to unravel, all because of Finn Holmes. Finn is a mysterious guy who always seems to be watching her. Every encounter leaves her deeply shaken, though it has more to do with her fierce attraction to him than she'd ever admit. But it isn't long before he reveals the truth. Wendy is a changeling who was switched at birth, and he's come to take her home. Now Wendy's about to journey to a magical world she never knew existed, where she'll tap into powers she never thought possible, and discover who she's meant to become.
Tell us why this is one of your favorite books. You touched on it a little bit last episode.
Yeah, so I mentioned last time that growing up I didn't read or was not encouraged to read a lot of fantasy books or a lot of things that had to do with magic. I didn't read Harry Potter till I was in my 20s, although I did watch the movies as they came out. And this was one of those books that I happened to pick up. I do believe it was my first introduction into anything. Like, I think I read this before I read anything about werewolves or vampires or anything like that. And it just kind of, I fell in love with the genre. And I read all three as they came out. And then about a year ago, actually, we went to the bookstore and I saw it and I just was like, oh my goodness, it still exists. I didn't even know what it was called until I saw the cover and I was like, oh, this is it. This is the book. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to share it with you, and hopefully someone either is encouraged to pick it up or they've also read it and they're like, oh, that could be interesting, because it is different. It's about a changeling, which is not your typical werewolf, vampire, fairy story.
Well, it must be doing pretty good to still be on modern bookshelves and bookstores.
Yeah.
So that's always a plus. I read tons of fantasy, but the ideas presented in this novel are not in my typical wheelhouse. Changelings, trolls, etc. So even though it was fantasy, it was different for me too.
And it's a YA. Just to throw that out there. It's not a high reading level.
Sense. And
it's not.
Yeah. And the cover seemed that way. The cover is very much a YA cover with like a real girl on and like a flowing dress and the castle or palace in the background on a red cover.
Yep.
I assume this is a 5-star book for you.
It is.
Would reread.
Yeah, I have read it probably 3 or 4 times, not as much as our previous book, but that's because I didn't have it. And so this will be one that I will continue to reread. And I think I definitely know that there are some, like, not challenges, but it's not, compared to other books of similar genre, it's not a masterpiece by any means, but it's fun, and for me, it's something that I think has become nostalgic, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, because that's when we do my book, that's how I feel. Not a masterpiece, but it's fun, and I can reread it multiple times. So, for me, I definitely enjoyed this book. I am at a point where I could read the next 2, but I might not, Like, I'm glad that I read the first one, and it was different for me. Interesting take on trolls, considering how trolls are typically portrayed in most media. The most recent thing that comes to mind is Frozen, because I'm playing a Disney game right now, but I think like the Frozen trolls and stuff like that. The idea of changelings. If this were a TV show or something similar, it would definitely be on the CW.
Mm-hmm. It is a CW show for sure. 100%.
Oh my gosh. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just how I felt about it. It's got that sort of teen drama to it. Nothing crazy. I was just like, oh yeah, I can see this as a TV show. Where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about characters or the story? Because I definitely have some thoughts on some characters.
Well, do you want to give a spoiler-free? Do you want to say if you would recommend it or not?
Sure, yeah, let's do spoiler-free.
Yeah, we'll jump into some spoilers, because I'm afraid to talk because I'll just spoil everything.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Spoiler-free. I didn't dislike any characters. I thought they were all good in their own way. The real mom, what's the real mom's name again?
Alora.
She, I think, is the character you like to dislike. Like, she was pissing me off hardcore. Mm-hmm. Well, see, yeah, this is hard to talk without spoilers.
So who would you recommend this book for? And also, my dogs are now having a wrestling match behind me, so that's what you hear.
It's a dog day for us. Certainly no one in my family or friend group. So it's very hard to answer. I don't know who I would recommend this book to. It's definitely aged towards middle, high school, teen girls, etc. I don't have anyone in my circles that I could tell, I could recommend this book to. Not a bad thing, just not my group's typical read.
Yeah, I would say probably like 13 to 17-year-old girls who like fantasy books but want something a little different. Or supernatural.
And I tried to read it from your perspective, because you had said before we went into this was like your first real fantasy book. And that's a very interesting first fantasy novel, because it just touches upon things. It's still really grounded in reality, if you will. So much as this kind of book can. It takes place on our Earth. It takes place in a world where magic isn't known, all right, or creatures aren't known. They're hiding out in a standard, like, kind of regular neighborhood, if you will, but they're hiding out. The world doesn't know of their existence, really. The main character is part of this family. She finds out that she was switched at birth, and we learn very quickly that her, not even adopted mother, her mom, who she thought was her mom, who she thought was her mom, is kind of in a hospital or a home. Mm-hmm. After going a little bit crazy, but it's because her mom might know the truth, because that mother's intuition of like, this isn't my child, it was supposed to be a boy, there's no way the doctor's messed up. So it's a lot of family drama with her mom, her brother, learning about her real family, and putting a lot of trust in a stranger from school, and just, driving a couple states away to find out what her real life is supposed to be. I think that's as shallow as we can get without getting into the spoilers. That's the base level of what happens in this book.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, it's based in reality enough so that you understand everything they're talking about. And even to the point where they go, yeah, we're not trolls like you see in pop culture.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that this is not what you would normally expect. And she does. She jumps in a car due to some unforeseen circumstances and travels to meet her biological family. So
Who lives in, is it Minnesota? Am I just making that up? It's Minnesota, right? Or
I don't actually know. I thought it was like Washington, but maybe it's not.
they say it. They say it. I'm completely blanking on it. I read this book probably a while ago now.
I finished it last night, and like I said, I've read it before, but it's in that it's a mid to West Coast range.
Regardless of where it is, yeah, it's not the kind of fantasy book that's gonna throw you a bunch of made up words and a bunch of made up lore and a bunch of made up magic. It touches upon magical ideas, but nothing that's gonna be like, oh god, I gotta really be in the mood for this fantasy novel and really, put in a mindset to learn all this nonsense.
Yeah, no, it's very easy.
It's a very simple. Yeah, very simple. You're not getting into much here, which is kind of it's nice.
So let's get into some spoilers.
Yeah, I think that's all we can do, because if anything else we say, it has to be spoiler related.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's your warning, and let's talk about some things.
I'm very excited. I know I already saw what you rated it, and I already know probably some of the reasons you rated it, what you did. Also, because just you're not the audience. But I'm still really excited to dive in. So
yeah, I'll just let people know my rating now, so they can kind of you know play along with me. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but like a good solid. I read this book, enjoyed it. I don't have much complaint at all about this book. It's very well written, very interesting ideas, kind of new to me in some ways. It's just like you said, I'm not the major target audience, but again, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we meet Wendy. She's never fit in. The person who she believed was her mother tried to kill her when she was 6 years old at a birthday party when she had a fit about receiving a chocolate cake. Trolls in this world are very picky eaters. They like fresh fruit. They don't like anything processed, and a chocolate cake is 100% processed. And she throws a fit about every present she gets, about the clothes she has to wear. Trolls hate wearing shoes, and her mom attempts to murder her, saying that she definitely was not her child. And her big brother, Matt, jumps in. I think Matt is like 2 to 3 years older than her. I think in the story it's like she's 17 or 18 because she's a senior in high school, and he's early 20s. So he jumps in and literally pulls their mother off of her, and the mother is sent away to, like a mental institution forever. And then, and Wendy and Matt move in with their aunt, who takes care of them and raises them as her own. And Wendy cannot stay in school. They keep kicking her out. She keeps getting expelled for various reasons. And really, everyone she interacts with hates her, like naturally hates her, except for Matt and her aunt.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I was like, oh god, it's, this book is first person, right?
No,
why am I blanking on this?
third.
We just read it. Third?
No, you're right. You're right. It is first person. It's from Wendy's point of view.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good. I legit couldn't remember. So this book is first person, and we start off with like all of her troubles growing up. I'm just like, oh god, we're in for like a brat as a main character, and she'll have character development and get better. Because I did not know she was going to end up being like a troll and a changeling, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this makes much more sense. I feel much better about the fact that she's the worst when she's growing up.
Well, I think, too, you think of trolls as our natural society. Like, we don't like trolls. Until Frozen, there was no, like, cute troll, And so I think maybe...
Well, mine is troll dolls.
Oh, yeah, troll dolls. But maybe the author was kind of playing on, like, if we met a troll, we would not like them. Even though she's beautiful and she has curly, crazy red hair, or reddish brown hair, and seems like she should be a normal American girl, there's something about her that almost repels us. And then they play off that because when they meet Finn, Finn kind of draws people to him, specific kinds of people to him. And so I think there's like
Finn,
that thing there.
Yeah, so Finn is like did they call them hunters or trackers? Yeah, trackers.
And if you want to use the like mean word, he's a stork.
A stork, yeah. So Finn's job, most trolls growing up, when you're born, they change you out with a normal
Rich.
human family so that you can rich ideally so that you can grow up, get a regular education, and then come into money and then come home. But as a changeling, given away as a baby, you don't know that. So as you grow up, these trackers eventually track you down to bring you home. That's Finn's job.
And most
really messed up in every sense of the...
Yes. And most of the time, the changeling, when they're tracked down by a tracker like Finn, they're early 20s, and they're like, yeah, I belong somewhere else. They're ready to go. They know that they don't belong in the human, quote-unquote, world and are excited. But Wendy is picked up because she's a very important person. She's a princess, and she's younger than the average changeling being returned. So that there's something to that for them.
I liked I'm glad they brought this conversation up. They were talking about how, Wendy's asking Finn, so you just approach these young men and women and tell them this isn't their life, and they just get in a car with you and go? Like, that seems unsafe.
And he's like,
she's
yes.
like, how could I possibly? And he's got this like aura about him, if you will. Like, people just trust his face, But that's how I was. That's what I was thinking. I was like, just some random stranger you've barely talked to at school. I guess you're just gonna get in his car and drive out of state. Like,
I think it's
so I thought that was kind of weird that everyone trusts him up until our main character who doesn't trust him at first.
And he's like, the heck? Like, this is not the easy situation. Even we get to see some of the relationships of him, Finn, and the people he's brought back from the human world. And they're good friends. He's friends with Willa. He's friends with, I can't think of his name. Tove. Is that how they said it? Tove? Tov? Tove?
You got me. I don't know.
I think it's Tove. Tove. He's still friends with them and has very good relationships with them. And they are very happy and grateful to him for picking them up. And Wendy's like, you are creepy. Leave me alone. And we very quickly see that she's very attached to her family, but also she's very pulled towards Finn, and she doesn't understand it. And he, in turn, is very pulled toward her and has a little crush. But he can't because she's a princess and he's a tracker. So
yeah, this book will bring in a sort of love triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
we'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
She blows him off and says, he tells her, hey, come with me. This is who you are. This is what you are. She says, F off, get out of my room, because he was in her room. My brother's going to come kill you. And he's like, cool, I'll leave. I respect you and your decision. But he doesn't fully leave. He's still like round the corner. And she ends up is outside at one point in the next few days and gets attacked by the Vitria. That's how I say it? Is that how they said it?
It sounds right.
And the Vitria are a different clan of troll. They are not Trill. They are enemies, basically. And they try and kidnap her.
Because the way my audiobook went, the book ended and then there was the bonus scene. Did your physical book have the bonus scene?
No. I don't know.
Because we get this group's perspective on this fight. And then we see them return home and kind of get in trouble when they lose the fight.
The fight at the end of the book or this fight?
At the very end of the entire book, the book ends and then there's a bonus 2 or 3 chapters and you get their side of the story and what happens when they return home after they fail.
No, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it was kind of intense. I was like, oh, okay, I want to know more about this side of things.
So I'm looking in my book physically. You can see me. It says, I never noticed this. The last page says, "Return to the beloved world of Trill with the Canaan Chronicles." So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But I will be looking that up when we're done.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
I wonder maybe if the Canaan Chronicles was an alt perspective and I read the first three chapters?
I don't know. I'm definitely going to be looking that up, though, because I do love these
Yeah,
books.
okay.
So Wendy gets to the world of Trill. What are your thoughts about this opulent world and Wendy's role in it?
First of all, I was annoyed because they did that thing where everyone, I mean, for the trolls, this is their life. This is normal. Oh, a new person's coming home. And I just get annoyed because, like, obviously Wendy is just being introduced into this world and you're all acting like she should know things and this is normal and all of a sudden you have these duties and you must do what I say, and it's like, girl, she's been here 3 seconds, calm down. Like, introduce her to your world. Stop being so, like, snappy and quick, and, like, especially the mom is just like, this is how your life is now, deal with it, I'm an asshole, and follow my rules. And she kind of does, and I'm like, you need to, like, get on top of this woman because she does not own you.
Well, and there's so many things. Yeah, they just don't tell her things. So there's again, I don't know how they actually say it, but there's a Manx. There's a Manx population, and that's like the bad word of it, but these are the human children that the changelings have been changed out for, that grow up in the Trill community. And there's a Manx that lives across the hall from her named Reese. And it isn't until the very end of the book that she finds out that he was changed for her. He's her Manx, and that makes him an important person in this world. And, like, they've spent, like, a week together, and no one ever thought to say, like, oh, yeah, that's the reason he looks just like your brother is because he is your brother's actual brother. Like, there's a reason you like him. It's because he's supposed to have had your life. And she doesn't understand. Like, no one says, like, hey, there's a hierarchy here. You can't really, like, appear to be friends with them because which, obviously, like, she should break those rules. That's just rude. But no one says, like, hey, you're not supposed to, like, they're like servants, kind of glorified indentured type servants that we've raised. And you can't really hang out with them. They just get mad at her for hanging out with people her own age.
Yeah, they do not explain things. That's my one, I think, truly my one complaint. And I don't even know if it can be a complaint of the writer, because I think that's just...
It's on purpose.
Yeah, it's just how the trolls operate. It's like, God, they're just infuriating to deal with. They're used to a certain lifestyle. They expect everything they want and deserve and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Explain something, like, she is coming into this world. You just changed her life. Like, explain literally anything.
Well, and as we get further into it, Tove really hits the nail on the head. So Tove is the basically prince. If she doesn't take the throne, Tove will take the throne. And it's all based on power, and he's very powerful, and she is extremely powerful. She just doesn't know how to tap into it yet. And he says to her, they've become too complacent and they're too focused on society and on, these balls and these opulent houses and all of that thing, all of those types of things, and not on taking care of and building up the community. So people who do have powers, they're not being trained to use them and not being trained. We see Willa, she's becomes Wendy's friend, and she has the power of wind, but she, like, can't do anything other than, like, blow a little breeze. And it could be used for something, and they just don't care. She's just into hair and makeup and nails and marrying, hopefully Tove, but marrying a high-ranking person and living a fancy life. And he's just like, this isn't what we should be doing, y'all. But no one listens to him.
I kept picturing for Um, what's the real mom's name? You just said it.
Elora?
Alora. Okay. Um, this could be completely inaccurate. I just couldn't help myself. I kept picturing Mother Gothel from Disney's Tangled.
But she's not pretty.
Right, but I was just thinking of like tries to come off as nice, but it definitely has an evil side, and it has to be her way or the highway.
So I think of her more as Elsa before she let it go. Like she has to
stuck up, and
she feels the only way she can survive the box she's put herself into or been put into is by being cold and distant, because she can see the future and she knows where things are going, and there's things in future books that play out that I believe she already knows about in this first book.
Well, there's one thing she quite literally continues repeatedly saying over and over again whenever Wendy gets upset or doesn't understand something, and she's just like, you just don't know the full picture. You just don't know the full picture. I'm like, then explain the full picture and she will stop doing this.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think it's, I truly think she's doing the best with what she has, and she doesn't know how. She was a changeling too, so she wasn't raised with love and kindness, and, I think some people aren't maternal, and that's okay.
For sure.
I think she's doing her best. I don't like her by any means, but
nope. I like to hate her.
Yeah, I just think she's doing what she thinks is right, even if it's misguided.
It's definitely misguided, because she even says, like, you think I don't love or care, but I do. But, like, she just doesn't show it. But it's like, it sounds like you're just kind of, one direction, you're on a path to, like, the future, and you'll just use whoever's in your way to get to that. Like, you're going to be a princess, you have to change your name. And it's like, wait, what? I'm not changing my name. Yes, you are. Also, get ready for this and that. And you have to, be the head of this ball. And, we're only inviting 500 people. And it's just like one thing after another, nonchalant, like, just trying to raise all 20 years of her in like 2 days. Yeah. It's like,
so they have this ball to present Wendy, and that's the one thing that she stands up for. She says she's not changing her name, and that's because her brother, Matt, picked her name for her because he was on a Peter Pan and Wendy kick. And she loves her family, and everyone's like, forget them. They aren't actually your family. And she's not willing to do that, which is different than other changelings. So they have a couple days from the time Wendy comes home to prepare her for this kind of coming out ball and introducing her to society. And she has limited interaction with Reese and with Willa and Tove, and she meets kind of some key members of society before the ball. And I definitely think Tove deserves his own kind of commentary. Not only would he be her successor if she doesn't take over the throne, but he is, I don't know what to call his power because it's kind of strange, but he is able to move things with his mind, and he is also able to read auras.
Yes.
And some other things. But he can sense what people are putting off, and Wendy projects her feelings very, very, I don't know the word. Projects really hard, and it stresses him out. So whenever they're around each other, he kind of seems like a dolt. Because he's so stressed out by her violent feelings.
Yeah, picking up on the vibes.
Yeah. I don't know. In college, I had a math teacher. It was quantitative business analysis. But I had a math teacher who himself was such an anxious person that I literally I have no idea what we learned in that entire class. So I don't know if anyone I can kind of relate to Tove being like, whoa, this person is freaking me out.
I cannot relate to that, but I can only imagine.
Yeah. I get it, and I sympathize.
Tove, I think I'm supposed to like Tove more than I did. I didn't have anything necessarily against him. He didn't stand out to me. Like we're talking about him, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this character was in the book, and I mean, he was important, obviously, but yeah, he was there.
Yeah, so he kind of really is just around, and then at the very end, they have this epic battle. The Vitria try and show up again and kidnap Wendy, and he's the most powerful in the room. So as people are trying to grab at her, he's throwing them against the wall. He's saving people. Really, he and Allura are the warriors in this battle, and no one else. Willa throws some wind. Someone throws some fire somewhere, and a lot of people die. But he's like, I think very like Stranger Things almost. There's a point in it where she says that he's, got his hand out and he's thrown someone against the wall. So he's kind of like everyone. And
Telekinetic, that's the name we're trying to think of.
Oh, this dog. Yeah. Yeah, he has telekinesis and really shows up at the end of the book. And Finn and someone get into it, and Finn throws them both off a ledge, which reminds me of some other show or movie. But Tove is there to save Finn and grab him and like lift him, float him back up. Yeah. So, and they have a good relationship. They've planned that out. They know, they've been talking on the side. They've been having conversations that we're not privy to. Because we only get Wendy's perspective, we have kind of the not unreliable narrator, but not fully informed narrator.
Yeah, no, it's not all, it's not omniscient. I mean, we only see what she sees, so.
She is desperately, fully head over heels in like with Finn, and that tends to color her choices a lot. She is most adamant about things when it comes to Finn, and she does not want him to leave their service, but Allura basically says Finn needs to go because he is too invested and in love with her, and trackers are below everyone in the community. They are the lowest, and although desperately important, they are the least respected of the community. And Allura basically is like, y'all can't be together. And this, we learn that part of Allura's, hey, you can't be with him, is because Allura had an affair with Finn's dad.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot this. Yes.
And she at the time was told, she would give up her crown for him. And she chose duty over self. And that's what she expects of Wendy and of Finn. And Finn's dad goes back to Finn's mom, and they've been married for, 20 years or whatever. Allura repeatedly has chosen duty over self, and she expects that of Wendy. Wendy is not ready to give that. She's 16, 17 years old and has a whole life ahead of her. She has a family who loves her and doesn't know if she wants this. Doesn't know if she can't have the things that she wants in life, which at the time is Finn and her family. Then why? And she's being tracked down by these random ass people. She's like, why would I want this? Tove is more powerful. Cares more. He can be in charge.
Yeah, so I'll be curious to see where it goes, because we do end the book with her going home
with
and ending at home. But I imagine at some point by the end, she's got to take over as queen, or I don't know. I'm wondering a few things. I'm wondering if the idea of trolls will get out, if she just does this massive upheaval of like, I'm changing the status quo, or if she'll keep things secret, if she'll give up the princess / queen role, or if this book is too set in its teen book ways and will end the way I expect it to end. It can go lots of different ways.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any comments on that because I know. But if you decide not to read it off of this, I will tell you.
Okay, I will see. I'll let you know what I decide to do.
Keep me updated there. So yeah, it does end where she decides she doesn't want it, and she takes Reese, who is low. He's never going to do anything there. He's basically going to be a chef or be a servant for the remainder of his life, and she takes him back to his real biological family at the very end. And we don't get to see the interaction other than Matt opening the door and giving her a hug. And honestly, I feel like Matt, her biological brother that raised her, is very similar to Charlie in Twilight. Like, he really doesn't know what's going on, but he loves that girl, teenage girl, unconditionally. And even though she's been kicked out of a million schools, even though they've had to move a bunch of times, he can't really live his life until she's an adult. He's there with open arms to protect her and love her and do best by her that he possibly can. You know.
And I will take your word on that comparison.
Have you not seen Twilight or read? I haven't read it. I've seen it.
I have seen Twilight, but not since it very first came out.
Okay.
And only out of pure curiosity of, like, what's the big deal with Twilight?
Fair. It is definitely my guilty pleasure movie, and I think it's hilarious, and I watch it probably once a year. But
oh my gosh.
that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he's just a solid dude. I think that's the best way to describe Matt.
Okay. Fair enough.
And people who like Twilight will 100% know what I'm talking about. But yeah, she goes home. So how did you feel? You have all this lead up. She's supposed to be the princess. They have this big ball. They're attacked. She's basically useless. And she's like, screw all this. I'm going to go be a human.
Realistic choice. I feel like that's exactly what would happen when you're here for all of 3 seconds and that kind of thing goes down.
Yeah.
I imagine she'll let Matt in on the deal with her real parents and that they're not really siblings. And I imagine that she will not willingly go back. I mean, obviously she has to go back at some point. It's a story. She'll probably go back at some point, but it won't be willingly. I'm sure something will happen again, like someone will come to her house or what have you. That or Matt might be the catalyst of, like, hey, you've told me your story, and I really think the right thing to do is, like, go back. But I can't imagine Matt liking everything that happened to her since she left, because they've almost all been a-holes.
True. Yeah, it definitely, they leave it as I don't think, like, you could definitely read it as a one-off book, but it's very ended on, she just goes home.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it was something I had to continue reading, and I plan to keep reading these.
I fully expected in the beginning-ish of the book, when she first leaves and makes the call to Matt, like, hey, like, they're crying to each other, and like, hey, I'm leaving, don't seek me out, I will be okay, this is not like a blackmail call of, like, I'm really not okay. I fully expected she would see Matt again at some point, but easily not till the end of the trilogy, when all was said and done, so I was not expecting it in the first book.
One thing that you reminded me of just now is she does go to speak to her not biological mom, her changeling mom who tried to kill her.
That very important. We skipped right over that.
Yeah, so she goes, and I can't even remember her name, but she goes and sees the mom that raised her, tried to kill her at 6, and basically the mom was like, you figured it out, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And she just kept asking her, what are you? And it confirms to Wendy that Finn isn't just a psychopath telling her that she's a troll.
Yeah, and the mom figured everything out on her own, too, a while back, without any help.
The whole time, the mom planned to name her Michael. The mom knew she was a boy and had Michael, Reese, and held him and nursed him, put him in the bassinet, basically, to go, you know how I don't think they do this anywhere anymore in America, but they have, like, the baby room where they line them all up and you can go stare and out the window and look at them. So he went there, was changed for Wendy, and came back as a girl. Like,
and her entire research was literally all based on, like, fairy tales and stuff. Like, she decided, yes, these fairy tales are real. This must be what had happened, which is probably why she went a little bit crazy.
Well, yeah, because everyone's telling her, no, you had a boy. And she was like, or I mean, you had a girl. And she knew in her heart of hearts, like, honestly, she was being a great mom. Like, she wasn't being a great mom to Wendy, but she was being a great mom to the child she actually gave birth to.
I mean, her mind broke in a way, you know? Her kid was kidnapped day one. Like, go figure.
Yeah. And she knew, and I feel like that's something like, you know, there are times where like people on farms and stuff try to introduce a baby that's lost its mom to like a mom that's lost its baby, and they're like, no, like that's not my
not compatible.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I envision is her going, no, like I know what my baby is, and I feel this connection to my baby, and this one is not it. Give me my baby. And they tell her she's crazy. And yeah, it makes her more and more crazy, and she's never likes Wendy.
Yep.
So I thought that was an interesting exchange. Matt was very against it. Oh, and we haven't talked at all about Wendy's powers. That's when we realize that Wendy has the power of persuasion. So Matt does not want to take her. He says, hell no, we're not going. She's not seen her since the mom tried to kill her. And in her head, she thinks, you know, please take me. I really need to go. I really want to go. And even though he doesn't want to, he drives her to the hospital. He's like pissed, but he can't not do it.
Well, and people even just in regular life pick up on it in school and stuff. They're just like, she definitely made that person do that thing, and I have no idea how she did that.
Oh, yeah. She fell asleep in class, and the teacher tried to send her to the principal's office, and in her head, she just thought, no, let me stay. Please let me stay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. And he kind of just like, you know what?
They turn into zombies.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of just like they start talking monotone, their eyes kind of glaze over.
And she doesn't always mean to do it, and it just happens. But she is also aware from having done it accidentally that it only lasts so long. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
Like, I'm just saying she might have the strongest power out of all of them, because that's the power of persuasion. I mean, that's a phrase. Like, the power of persuasion is a big deal in anything.
Well, and they keep telling her she's very powerful, but she doesn't know how to use any of it. So it doesn't matter at this point if she's powerful or not. She just knows when she says, I want this, she gets it.
So I would say my biggest question out of everything that I've read so far, the most surprising thing to me, which is probably not the same as other people, is that apparently her fake family is super rich. What? I don't... Why are they super rich? That's so out of left field.
So her... Alora chooses the family because they were well off. So her fake father dies, and then it's just the mother and the brother and Wendy. They were wealthy from the start, and that's why she chose them. I don't think they ever say what their business was or whatever, but they were well off, and they assumed that Wendy would get an inheritance, and that inheritance would be brought back to the Trill, and that would help them to pay for their lifestyle.
Yeah, Wendy makes a point of saying, like, no, you don't understand, we're not rich. Like, we lived a modest life. Like, you know, standard house, standard school, standard everyday life things, but I'm not sitting on money. So they make a point of, like, telling us, like, yeah, we know, like, there's a secret going on. We don't know what the deal is. Like, why would she not know any... Like, I don't understand, like, why she would not know her family was rich. Like, there is no reason to hide that from them. Does Matt even know?
Yeah, so when they lived with their mom, they lived in a nice, wealthy house. Their mom didn't have to work, and she was aware of that, but her belief was that they spent all the money moving from place to place.
Yeah.
Because...
I don't know. I hope we learn more about that.
Well, and I think Matt and their aunt decided to raise her as normally as possible, and they want her to have... You know, they're in a standard 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom type of house, and they... go from place to place in these fairly nice suburbs. They're not, you know, they're not poor by any means. But I think she's also just young, and I think the aunt was probably taking care of all the finances. Like, they just say, like, they don't want her to worry about anything. She doesn't need or want for anything, but they think she's so traumatized and fragile from her mother trying to kill her that they wear kid gloves, and I don't think that they tell her anything.
That much is very clear.
Yeah. So, like you said earlier, you gave it a 3. I give it a 5 out of 5. I plan to keep reading these again and again, and I'm very excited that I just realized that there's 3 more in this world. I will be buying them right now and reading those sometime soon. So I think this is like an underrated gem of a fun, easy read about a supernatural world that we don't talk about a lot.
So your last favorite book that you picked for us was Carpe Diem. Mm-hmm. I know they're very different. Do you like one more than the other?
Probably. My initial reaction is that I like Carpe Diem more, but I think what it really is they're different. Carpe Diem.
Yeah, they're very different genres.
Yeah, Carpe Diem makes me want to live my best life, and I definitely. Mm-hmm. What's the word? I am a lot like Vassar in that book, in that I am a list person, a plan person. I can't go an hour without a plan. And in this, it's lighthearted and it's different, and I like the escapism of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's fantasy, lighthearted, just get away from it all, right? Like you're just having fun with it. Carpe Diem is very, very grounded in reality, and sometimes even a little too real at moments, and it can be a little bit, fun but also scary. And I would definitely pick Carpe Diem. Mm-hmm. I would reread that one well before I reread this one, and I mean, Carpe Diem, as I told you, I loved that book. It was a surprisingly good book. But yeah, I was curious if that was if there was any comparison there. And you put out a new one of our Instagram posts, etc., with all of your favorite books, mm-hmm. and I was wondering if one of those is the next one you're going to pick and we do a book swap again.
I will have to think about it, because they are definitely not books. Again, that's part of the fun of doing these, is they're things that we would not normally choose, because we try and choose books for our buddy books that we might at least both be interested in, and these are books that mm-hmm. like we as individuals know that we love for some reason and are swapping them, and it doesn't really matter. I'm like, I know that this is not your kind of book.
Oh yeah, throw whatever at me. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So
this is 100% a book that I would pass when I walk down the mm-hmm. shelves. Like the book does not scream out anything to me, and yet I enjoyed it. So
can you, with that, unless you have anything else, do you want to tell us a bit about the book you've chosen for me to read? Because I know nothing about it, yes. even though I have it on my shelf.
So unless this is your first episode of Paper Quest, you probably know by now that, first of all, my favorite adult author is Brandon Sanderson. We're not swapping a Brandon Sanderson novel, but my favorite kid author, setting aside J.K. Rowling, because that's cheating in some way, my favorite kid author is Brandon Mull. So I've picked his first novel. It's called Fablehaven. I'm just going with the Amazon description for now, and I'll write something up once we reread it and all that. Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. I want to say maybe age range of 8 to 12 or something like that. For centuries, mystical creatures of all description were gathered into a hidden refuge called Fablehaven to prevent their extinction. The sanctuary survives today as one of the last strongholds of true magic. Enchanting? Absolutely. Exciting? You bet. Safe? Well, actually, quite the opposite. Kendra and her brother, Seth, have no idea that their grandfather is the current caretaker of Fablehaven. Inside the gated woods, ancient laws keep relative order among greedy trolls, mischievous satyrs, plotting witches, spiteful imps, and jealous fairies. However, when the rules get broken, powerful forces of evil are unleashed, and Kendra and her brother face the greatest challenge of their lives. To save their family, Fablehaven, and perhaps even the world, Kendra and Seth must find the courage to do what they fear most. Now, this is not my favorite description because it makes it sound a lot more dramatic than it actually is, which is like, you know, the description of books like these always make it seem dramatic. Oh, the world. Oh, all these. It's not that dramatic. It's a very closed, you know, system. Like, it all takes place on their property. And of course, I'll talk a lot more about this when we get into it, but it's very much in the style of Harry Potter in the fact that it's a series and each book kind of grows up. They get older and older, so it feels a little more adult as you go on and on. They're very young in this book, so it comes off as much more a kid book than the later ones do. I did not know anything about this book when I first picked it up years ago, probably in a Borders. I think Borders was still open. But I could be wrong on that, don't quote me. And I was pulled in by the cover, so I did not even know what the book was initially about. So a lot of what the back of the book says was new when I first read it, so it was completely unspoiled. But some of that spoiled in this book description.
Well, I'm very excited to read it, and I think that having a couple of these kind of supernatural-based books is fun as we move into the fall season, and as we have a couple lined up. Definitely look for it on our Facebook description, on our calendar there, because we have some heavier ones that are lined up and more spooky. So I like that we have these kind of lighthearted things happening.
Yeah, these shorter ones are nice to just sort of get through in a day or two, because I think if not immediately, then almost immediately, we're jumping into Stephen King's new novel. And I have not seen the physical book yet, but knowing Stephen King, I'm sure it's not short.
No, it's not short. I have it.
So I don't know how much I don't know how much personal reading I'll do leading up to that book, because it's going to take a while to get through that. We'll see when we get to future side quests how much I have to talk about.
Yes.
I think our last huge novel like that was probably Priory of the Orange Tree, and I did not do a whole lot of personal reading during that.
Well, so
during that quest.
Yeah, there might be some shorter side quest episodes coming out.
Yeah.
To balance it all out.
Absolutely. All right, you want to add anything else?
No, if you have any suggestions of things like the Trial trilogy that we should read or that you think we should check out, definitely leave them in the comments, because I need more of these. And even though I already have a massive TBR to go through, I want more.
All right, yeah, sounds good. Well, we will see you next time for our side quests, and then after that, we'll do my fave book swap and see if it still holds up from when I read it all those years ago. But until next time, bye.
Bye.